Ma'am, take your hands off your stomach. I'm 9 months pregnant. Then you should have thought twice before resisting. The camera shakes as the woman falls. One cop steps over her body. Another holds up a receipt like it's a loaded weapon. Blood seeps under her dress. A crowd screams. Her 5-year-old son watches from the back seat, his forehead pressed to the glass. Her crime? She asked to use the restroom. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching us from. Alea Monroe had only pulled into the parking lot because her bladder couldn't wait. It was a quiet Monday morning in Peoria, Illinois. A corner gas station. No traffic. No rush. Just her and her son in the car. She was 39 weeks pregnant. Stay in your seat, baby. I'll be right back, she told Isaiah, cracking the window open. She waddled inside with her purse pressed to her side, one hand under her stomach. The clerk didn't look up. Restroom? She asked, breathless. Customers only, he muttered. I'll buy something after. Please. It's urgent. He eyed her belly like it was a lie. Then he turned around and picked up the phone. She didn't hear what he said, but she heard the words non-compliant and refusing. Alea pushed the restroom door open anyway. 2 minutes later, as she stepped out, 2 officers entered the station. Their eyes went straight to her. Ma'am, did you force entry into a restricted area? She blinked. I just used the restroom. That's not what the report says. What report? I had to go. I'm pregnant. That's not an excuse to trespass. I didn't trespass. I was inside the store. Store policy was clear. Her heart pounded. She looked at the cashier, who now stood silent, arms crossed. You called the police on a pregnant woman? He didn't answer. The younger officer stepped forward. I need to see your ID. She fumbled in her purse. It's here somewhere. Her hands trembled. Her fingers stiff. The older cop narrowed his eyes. Stop stalling. I'm not. Hands out where we can see them. Her voice cracked. My 5-year-old is in the car. Then don't make this worse. They moved in. One reached for her arm. Don't touch me. Please. The younger one grabbed her wrist. She twisted, stumbled. They shouted at once. She's resisting. On the ground. Stop pulling away. She cried out. A sharp, breathless scream. Her legs buckled. Her purse dropped. Something inside cracked. Not bone, but balance. Dignity. Safety. The floor met her shoulder. Her belly hit last. The clerk stepped back. The officers moved fast, one pressing her down, the other pinning her legs. Get back up, someone said. We've got a 10 to 55. Pregnant subject, resisting. Alea couldn't breathe. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her son was outside, watching. The door stayed open just long enough for him to see her face. The cuffs were cold, too tight for swollen wrists. Alea lay on her side in the back of the cruiser, knees drawn, breathing sharp and shallow. The officers had stopped speaking to her. Their eyes were forward. Their radios buzzed. She couldn't feel the baby moving. Please, she whispered. I need an ambulance. No answer. Her head throbbed from where it hit the tile. Her shoulder was stiff, but it was the silence in her belly that terrified her most. Something's wrong, she said louder. Still nothing. She turned slightly, wincing against the pain. I need to go to the hospital. The older cop finally spoke. You'll be evaluated at booking. Protocol. You don't understand. I can't feel him. The younger one sighed, clearly annoyed. You should have thought about that before resisting. The cruiser kept moving. At the station, they pulled into the underground garage. Alea's legs barely worked. They had to half-carry her inside. At intake, the sergeant raised an eyebrow. She's pregnant? Claimed she was. Started yelling for medical as soon as we cuffed her. How far along? No idea. The sergeant looked at her belly, then back at them. You put her in the back with no seatbelt? No answer. Was she checked by EMTs? Silence. You idiots brought in a pregnant woman with a possible injury and didn't call it in? She was resisting. The sergeant slammed a form down. Get her to county. Now. Only then did they call an ambulance. Alea's voice was a whisper by now. My baby hasn't moved. You're gonna be fine, said one of the EMTs, avoiding her eyes. They loaded her into the rig. The doors slammed shut. Red lights reflected off the concrete. Inside the ambulance, her hand trembled as she reached for the monitor. The EMT placed it gently on her belly. Silence. Then a faint rhythm. But it was slow. Too slow. The EMT's face changed. His fingers moved faster. We need to go, he told the driver. What's happening? Alea asked. We're close. Just hold on. She gripped the stretcher rails, her whole body shaking. She wasn't supposed to be here. Not like this. Not alone. Not under arrest. The hospital doors opened before they stopped moving. Nurses swarmed her, rolling her away from the sirens. A monitor beeped in panic. She turned her head just long enough to see the officer who brought her in, standing in the hallway, arms folded, no remorse on his face. He didn't see her as a woman. Or a mother. Just a threat. And the system? It didn't see her at all. Alea lay still in the hospital bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling. A fetal monitor beeped beside her. The baby's heartbeat had stabilized, for now. A nurse adjusted the 4-line in her arm. "You're lucky," the nurse said gently. "Could have been worse." Alea didn't respond. Lucky wasn't the word she'd use. The doctor had told her the truth. The trauma could trigger early labor. And if it did, there were no guarantees. A social worker arrived next. "Ms. Monroe, I need to ask you some questions." Alea turned her head. The woman wore a polite smile, but her eyes were already judging. "You were brought in by law enforcement. Can you explain what happened?" "I used a gas station bathroom. They said I trespassed." "Did you force entry?" "The door wasn't locked." The woman scribbled something. "Were you verbally aggressive with the officers?" Alea stared at her. "I begged them not to touch me. I told them I was pregnant." "Did you resist arrest?" That word again. Resist. It echoed through her bones. "I was scared," she said. "That's not the same." The woman didn't look up. "Do you have any prior arrests?" "No." "Any outstanding warrants?" "No." Still writing. "And the child's father, is he involved?" Alea blinked. "Why does that matter?" "Just protocol. I don't want to talk to you anymore." The social worker closed her folder slowly. "Just doing my job, Ms. Monroe. If you decline to cooperate, I'll have to make a note of that." Alea turned her face to the wall. 2 hours later, a uniformed officer arrived. Not the ones from earlier. This one was clean-cut, calm, professional. "Ms. Monroe, I'm Officer Dillard. I'm here to go over your incident report." "Incident?" "The one you filed." "I didn't file anything." He checked his tablet. "It says here you claimed excessive force during arrest." "I didn't speak to anyone." Dillard frowned. "Ma'am, are you saying this report is false?" "I'm saying I never gave a statement." "Then you'll need to sign a declination form." He handed her a clipboard. She stared at the paper. It was already filled out, already typed. All she had to do was sign. Her hand hovered. "What happens if I don't?" "It'll remain open. Could delay your release. Medical coverage, too." Her fingers tightened. They wanted her silence on record. They needed it. She took the pen, then stopped. "Can I keep a copy?" Dillard paused. "It's department property." "Then I'm not signing." Their eyes locked. The officer stood. "I'll make a note of that, ma'am." Alea leaned back, heartbeat rising again. The machine beside her beeped louder. She looked at her belly, whispering, "They want me quiet. But I'm still here." The hospital released her 2 days later. No apology, no explanation. Her wrists still carried faint red lines from the cuffs. She wasn't allowed to go home. Instead, she was taken to the county jail's medical wing for observation. There was no crib, no silence, no comfort. The cell lights never turned off. Her bunk creaked. The mattress was plastic and thin. They gave her prenatal vitamins with no water. She asked for a phone call. It came 4 hours late. She called her sister. Voicemail. The next morning, a public defender showed up. He looked rushed. His tie was crooked. He didn't sit. "Ms. Monroe, I've reviewed your file." She sat on the edge of the bed. "File? You're being charged with trespassing, obstruction, and resisting arrest." "I walked into a bathroom." "That's not how the report reads." "Did you watch the footage?" "I wasn't given access." She blinked. "But it's a gas station. There's video. The store manager hasn't released it yet." Alea stared at him. "So what's the plan?" He checked his phone, annoyed. "I've arranged a deal. Plead guilty to disorderly conduct. Time served. No probation. But I didn't do anything." "That's not the question. The question is, do you want to go home?" Her chest tightened. "If I say yes, that's it? I'm guilty?" "On paper, yes. But you walk." She stood up, belly aching under the weight. "What about my baby? What happens if I go into labor in here?" He didn't answer, just looked at the clock. "Judge will be in chamber at 4 p.m. That's your chance. Take the plea and walk. And if I don't?" "Trial. Delayed. Weeks, maybe months. In custody." She sat back down. He straightened his files and turned to leave. "I'll be back at 4. The door shut behind him. Alea pressed her hands to her belly. The baby shifted. "You didn't ask to be born into this." "I didn't ask to be criminalized for peeing." She leaned against the cold wall and closed her eyes. 12 hours earlier, she was a professor's assistant preparing for maternity leave. Now she was inmate number 942031. Medical hold. No family had visited. No lawyer believed her. No evidence had been reviewed. And the only option they gave her was surrender. She whispered to her unborn child, "If I sign that paper, they erase everything they did. It'll be like it never happened." Then she looked up. "But if I don't, they'll make sure you're born behind bars." 4 p.m. They brought her into the courtroom through a side door, ankle shackled. She waddled, slow and heavy, one hand on the belly, the other chained to a belt strap. She wasn't allowed to sit. Not yet. The judge didn't look up when she entered. Her public defender stood beside her, flipping through notes like pages mattered more than people. "Ms. Monroe has agreed to the plea," he announced. Alaya looked at him. She hadn't said a word. The judge raised one eyebrow. "Ms. Monroe, is that true?" She opened her mouth. The words didn't come out. Then she turned her head, just slightly, toward the gallery. It was nearly empty, but in the back row sat a janitor. Black, middle-aged, watching everything. He gave her the smallest nod. Not encouragement, recognition. She looked back at the judge. "I haven't agreed to anything." The room stilled. The defender sighed. "Ms. Monroe, I haven't seen the evidence. I haven't seen the footage. I haven't seen the report." The prosecutor stepped forward. "We're offering leniency, Your Honor." She was aggressive with law enforcement. "The video, eh? Where is it?" Alaya cut in. The judge frowned. "Ms. Monroe, this isn't." "I want the video." "From the gas station." The prosecutor hesitated. "The store hasn't submitted it." "Then I'm not pleading." Silence. The judge leaned forward. "You understand the risk?" "I do." "You understand you could be held until trial?" "I do." "And you're choosing to proceed?" She nodded once. The judge turned to the clerk. "Then we set a court date." 2 weeks. "I'll be in labor by then," Alaya said calmly. No one responded. The clerk typed. The defender adjusted his cuffs. The prosecutor looked annoyed. No one looked at her belly. Back in her cell, that night, a guard came by. "You've got mail." It was a single envelope. No name on it. Just a folded sheet of lined paper. Inside was a printout. A receipt. Gas station transaction. It showed the exact time. 9:13 a.m. Payment. Debit card. Successful. Item. Apple juice. Timestamp 3 minutes before the arrest. She stared at it. No note. No name. Just the truth, quietly delivered. Alaya pressed it to her chest and whispered, "They can hide a camera. They can fake a report." She looked at her swollen belly. "But they can't stop what I remember." The next morning, Alaya asked to see the jail librarian. The guard laughed. "What, you want to check out a book?" "I want the jail's policy manual." He raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because your officers violated at least 3 sections last week. I want to confirm the details before I file." He stared at her belly, then back at her face. "You some kind of lawyer?" "No. But I used to work for one." That changed everything. 30 minutes later, they brought her to the law library, a metal room with 3 flickering lights, 1 cracked window, and a locked file cabinet. The clerk handed her a laminated binder. 30 minutes. No pens. No photos. Notes and pencil only. She sat with the weight of her stomach pressing into the edge of the table. She flipped pages fast. Chapter 4. Use of Force and Medical Detention. Chapter 9. Pre-birth custody restrictions. Chapter 11. Access to counsel. Each line was a nail in someone's coffin. Just not hers. She made notes with dull lead on a yellow sheet. After 28 minutes, the clerk returned. "Done?" "One more question." She turned the binder. "Does this apply to local holding centers too?" He looked. Then looked again. "Yes. That's state-regulated." She nodded. "I need 2 more forms. Civilian complaint and writ of habeas corpus." His eyes narrowed. "Where'd you say you used to work?" "Third Circuit. Appeals Division. Research assistant." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You might want to call your supervisor. This case is about to escalate." Back in her cell, she filled out the forms carefully. Every sentence sharp. Every violation listed in sequence. Denied medical assistance post-impact. Restrained without probable cause. Pressured into plea under coercion. Obstruction of video evidence. Falsified probable cause. She didn't ask anyone for help. She knew no one would give it. But now, she didn't need help. She needed time. That evening, a guard returned to her door. "You're being moved." "Where?" You've been approved for third trimester release. Medical furlough. Her breath caught. By who? He didn't answer. Two officers walked her down the corridor. At the end of the hall, a nurse waited with paperwork. One form had no letterhead, but she recognized the language. It matched the complaint form she wrote. Someone had read it. Someone knew. As they walked her outside, the night air hit her face like a warning. No cameras. No press. No attention. Just a silent acknowledgement. We see you now. But she also knew what came next. Retaliation. They'd come quiet. Legal. Clean. Respectable. They'd come not to beat her, but to bury her in process. And this time, they'd be more careful. Alea wasn't free. Not really. She was out of jail, yes. But she wore an ankle monitor. A sheriff's deputy delivered the conditions. You are not to leave your residence unless for prenatal appointments, verified court dates, or emergencies. You are not to contact witnesses involved in your pending case. You are subject to random compliance checks. Any deviation will be considered flight risk. He didn't look her in the eye. She signed the forms with steady hands. The apartment smelled like bleach and dust. Her sister had cleaned before she came home, but hadn't stayed. Too busy. Too nervous. Alea didn't blame her. She spent her first hour home checking locks, windows, outlets. Then she sat at the kitchen table, the monitor cold against her skin, and opened her laptop. She didn't search her name. She searched the name of the arresting officer. Then the second. Then the sergeant. 3 complaints in 5 years. None upheld. But buried inside a 2022 local report, she found a footnote. Suspect declined to sign incident acknowledgement. Same wording they used on her. She started building a folder. She cross-referenced police procedure. Mapped it line by line. She compiled timestamps from her debit transaction. Matched it against dispatch logs. The 911 call came in at 9:16 a.m. Her payment processed at 9:13. The arrest was reported at 9:22. 9 minutes. That's how long it took to criminalize her. She wrote it out like a timeline. Printed it. Highlighted it. The baby kicked. I see you too, she whispered. Her phone buzzed. It was a restricted number. She let it ring. Then she called the courthouse. This is Alea Monroe. I'm requesting official copies of my intake documentation and copies of all footage entered into evidence. The clerk sounded surprised. That's not usually handled directly. I'm pro se until further notice. And I'm invoking Brady versus Maryland. Silence. Then typing. We'll process your request. She hung up. Every hour that passed, she built another layer. Witnesses. Receipts. Officer misconduct patterns. She wasn't planning to sue. Not yet. She was planning to break the case from inside. One rule at a time. She didn't post on social media. Didn't call reporters. Didn't yell. She calculated. Because the system didn't fear volume. It feared precision. And Alea was done playing defense. They thought they could bury her in silence. But she'd make sure the next time they looked down, they'd find her standing. The letter came in a plain envelope. No return address. No warning. Just one line, typed neatly across the center of the page. Notice of potential custodial review, infant Doe, unborn. Her hands trembled as she read it again. They were coming for her child. Not after birth. Before. She called the listed number. A woman answered, cold and efficient. Yes, Ms. Monroe. It's standard. When there's a criminal charge involving prenatal endangerment, CPS is notified. A review is scheduled within 72 hours of birth. I haven't been convicted of anything. But you've been flagged. Alea gripped the edge of the table. Flagged by whom? The woman didn't answer. She hung up. Alea sat in silence. Then she stood. She pulled the thick folder from the cabinet, the one she'd started in jail. She added a new label. Defense Exhibit B, Medical History and Pre-Delivery Interference. She printed her hospital report. Underlined the words, patient presented with signs of trauma during intake. She made 3 copies. She scanned the CPS notice and emailed it to herself. She created a digital trail. Something no one could delete later. That night, she heard the knock. 9:41 p.m. 3 soft taps. She looked through the peephole. A man in a brown jacket. Badge on the hip. Clipboard in hand. Ms. Monroe? Yes? Just following up. I'm with Child Services. We're doing a preliminary home safety assessment. She didn't open the door. At night? He smiled. Faster this way. You understand. She didn't move. Do you have a signed warrant? Pause. This is voluntary. Unless you refuse. I do. Refuse? I decline an unscheduled, warrantless visit. And this conversation is being recorded. The smile faded. He stepped back. That may be noted in the file. Then noted. She closed the door. Behind her, the baby shifted. Pressure. Lower than usual. She breathed deep. Something was changing. The next morning, she packed a hospital bag, just in case. Not with onesies and bottles. With forms. IDs. Files. Medical affidavits. Time-stamped receipts. Printed case law. She packed like a woman going to war, not labor. Because she didn't know what they'd try in the delivery room. A sedation. A separation. A lie. So she wrote a letter, addressed to whoever tries to take him. In it, she wrote, "You can threaten me, bury me, isolate me, but you will not erase me. My son will not be born a file number. He will be born a witness." Alea's water broke at 3:17 a.m. Her sister drove her to County General, same hospital from before. They checked her in fast. A nurse strapped on a monitor. 8 centimeters. "We're moving quickly." But another staff member lingered near the corner. Tablet in hand. No scrubs. No ID. "Who's that?" Alea asked. The nurse glanced over. "Social services, I think. Routine birth clearance." Alea's pulse spiked. "I want documentation of every person who enters this room. Full names. Titles." The nurse hesitated. "I'll check." The man didn't speak. Didn't move. Just typed. Alea's contractions hit hard. Fast. But pain wasn't the only thing pressing down. Fear pulsed in waves. A second man entered. Another clipboard. "We're here to speak with Ms. Monroe regarding postnatal custodial recommendations." Her voice was low but razor-sharp. "I'm in labor. This won't take long. Then you can wait until my son is born." "Ms. Monroe." She turned to the nurse. "I want their names. Now." The nurse's hands froze. I'll call the supervisor." The second man looked annoyed. Failure to cooperate may be reflected in custody evaluation. Alea's eyes locked on him. And violating HIPAA during active labor may be reflected in my civil suit. He blinked. Her sister stood up from the corner. "You two need to leave. Now." For the first time, they hesitated. One of them looked toward the door, then back at his tablet. "We'll return post-delivery." They left. The nurse returned 10 minutes later. "You have advocates?" "No." Alea breathed. "Just paper." "You scared them off." "Good." The next contraction nearly broke her. She screamed. Gasped. But the baby was moving. Strong. Alive. The OB rushed in. 10 centimeters. "It's time." They told her to push. She did. Once. Twice. And on the third, the room blurred. One more scream. And then silence. Followed by a cry. High. Sharp. Defiant. "A boy." The doctor placed him on her chest. She cried without sound. He was small. Warm. Breathing. The nurse leaned over, whispering. "Do you have a name?" Alea nodded. "His name is Justice." The nurse smiled. "That fits." But Alea wasn't done. She pulled the folder from her bag, now creased, but intact, and handed it to the nurse. "Give this to the pediatric liaison. Before anyone from social services gets to him." "What is it?" "Proof. Proof she paid. Proof she complied. Proof they lied." She kissed her son's forehead and whispered, "You're born clean. They'll try to write on you. But you came with your mother's truth." 2 weeks later, Alea sat in courtroom 2B, arms wrapped around a sleeping infant. The same judge. Same prosecutor. New silence. The public defender she'd fired was replaced by a substitute, silent and uncomfortable. But Alea stood for herself now. The judge adjusted his glasses. "Ms. Monroe, I've reviewed the motion to dismiss." Alea nodded. "Submitted with evidence, affidavits, time-stamped exhibits, and digital forensics." He tapped his gavel once. Not loudly. "Based on the documentation and in light of insufficient probable cause, all charges are dismissed." He looked up. "You're free to go." No apology. No admission of error. Just dismissed. But it was enough. She nodded again. No smile. The prosecutor didn't look at her. Neither did the arresting officer, seated 3 rows behind. But someone did. From the back of the room, the janitor, the same man who had watched her plea hearing, gave her another small nod. Still not encouragement. Still just recognition. She walked out carrying her son, wrapped in a second-hand blanket and her own quiet strength. Outside, the sky was flat and gray. There were no reporters. No headlines. No interviews. She didn't want them. The story wouldn't go viral. It wouldn't trend. But one day, her son would ask, "Mommy, what happened when I was born?" And she would tell him that systems can fail, that people can look away, that silence can crush, but truth can outlast all of it if you write it down line by line. Back home, she stored the entire case file in a box labeled Justice Monroe, Year Zero. She locked it, not to forget, but to preserve. The next morning, she fed her son at 5:12 a.m. Then she opened her laptop. She wasn't done. She drafted a legal article. Pregnancy Under Pressure, a study of racialized pretrial practices in medical custody. She added citations. Her own case. Others she'd found. She wasn't a lawyer, but she didn't need a degree to speak the truth. She sent it to 3 journals, then rocked her son, who blinked slowly in the sunrise. "We made it," she whispered. Not famous, not celebrated, but intact. And in this world, for people like them, that was already a revolution. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that inspire action and hope.